everyone can take their seat, we're going to get started. Welcome. I'm Danielle Bauer. I'm the Director of Membership and Education at CLA. So excited to have this event today. It is a sold-out event. So this is the second year that, put my hand on the cord. Actually, no, I didn't. Okay, lovely. Starting with technical difficulties. I don't know if the gentleman at the back can help get this back on. Thank you. So this is the second Women in Vended Laundry event that we have held at Clean Show. We started in 2019 with our first one. We had about 90 attendees there. This time we weren't sure with COVID and what our attendance would be, so thrilled that we have so many people. We still do need men in the room. Hate to admit it, but so just a little bit about the Women in Vended Laundry initiative. So this is something that we have heard from many people that it's something we should start in. I know Marlena is in the room somewhere. I know she pushed our president and CEO that you need to do something for women in laundry. So again, we started it in 2019. It is something we want to continue doing. The goal really is to, kind of what's on the screen here, to recognize, empower, and connect women in the vended laundry industry and develop leaders for our association and the industry. So we hope that the outcome of this is more women in the industry, more women on our CLA board, leaders in your company. So we're very excited about the whole initiative. So we could not have done this event without the support from our sponsors from Alliance Laundry Systems. And generally when we have sponsors, they provide money, of course, but these ladies, Jennifer Butzlaff and Amanda Bradley, they helped pick the speaker, plan the content, purchase the books in front of you, which is a gift. So I'd like to give a big round of applause to them. So with that, I'm going to ask Amanda to come up and introduce our very exciting keynote speaker today.
Thank you, Danielle. Well, I want to start by just saying thank you to CLA for really fostering this opportunity for all of us, and a special thanks to Danielle and to Nika and their whole team for putting this together and creating this space for us. Let's give them a round. We are really excited to welcome Fawn Germer today. I was actually listening to a podcast she was on, and she was speaking about how at a time of change, she needed a book to tell her how to be successful as a strong woman in a male-dominated environment. That was also, I was like, I hear that. I definitely think we can all relate, and that book didn't exist, and so she wrote it, and then she wrote 8 more. So we are so happy to have Fawn with us here today to share some of her pearls of wisdom. She is a best-selling author of 9 books, keynote speaker for dozens of Fortune 500 companies, and a 4-time Pulitzer Prize nominee, and co-host of the Hard-Won Wisdom podcast, chosen as one of the top 10 women's leadership podcasts of 2022. So happy to have her here today. We're going to play a quick video, and then we're going to bring her up.
moment of my week. I love this moment. I've already talked to you all, so I already love you. And I hope that as you live your life, you feel that same kind, that same kind of energy and love and appreciation and just challenge from doing work that you love. Because wow, what a payoff. Thank you so much for being here with me, my friends. Thank you, thank you. And I'm so glad that y'all chose me. It was wonderful to hear about this event because I understand this is a very male-dominated industry. Been there, not in your industry, but I grew up in newspapers, and I had that boss hole. He told me I wasn't going to go anywhere, and yeah. Anybody ever have a boss hole? Right? That's like, yeah, everybody's had a boss hole. It's just not everybody's been able to use that to turn it into a new career and make money off him being a jerk. But he said that, and I did a typically female thing, which is just spend 2 years trying to get the guy to like me again, right? Isn't that what we do? Because it must be my fault. And after 2 years, my city editor promoted me, and then he heard it because he was higher than that, and he revoked that, and I thought, oh, you're a bully, and I'm leaving. And I did. I left. I took a job as an editor at the newspaper in Tampa, Florida, where they had been trying to recruit me for 4 years. I said, look, if you're ever going to do it, you need to do it right now. Right now. And they did. And I went into a newsroom, and with all those traits that made me such a good investigative reporter, you know, very hard-charging, impatient, no BS, get it done now. And when it came to leadership, I sucked so bad. People thought I was a boss hole. They were quitting to get away from me. And I thought, oh, I got to get a book to help me with this. So I went to this place. It was Borders, and it's, okay, there used to be these stores where they had books in them. And they were called bookstores. But they didn't have a book on being a woman in a male-dominated environment. My friend said, you're a journalist, you should write it. And I was so sick of journalists writing books that they didn't know anything about, and other people acting like experts and putting out garbage. But I started to think no one had gone to the strong women who blazed the trail and said, what do we need to know so we don't have to hit our heads against the wall? And I decided I'm going to be that person. And I started asking these people for interviews, and who knew that it was going to set me on a path that would change my life forever. Not just as an author and speaker, which, believe me, that was hard, but as a human being, so that they would give me this $1 million worth of free therapy so I could have good self-esteem and take risks and just do all the things I never would have done if I had not stopped to ask the questions. Oh boy, there were some great moments in that. They all said that your ability to succeed depends entirely on your ability to take a risk. And we're going to talk about that a little bit. But when I was writing my book, I didn't have time to do my job and write the book, and I kept hearing it. And somebody in that book, Sylvia Earle, look up her quote, the oceanographer. She said, risk is the only way to test your potential. And I got done with her because I said, yeah, but have you ever failed? And she described a colossal failure. She'd taken all of her money and invested in this business, and it went belly up quickly. And I said, oh, I bet that made you bitter. And she said, no, look what I learned. And she rattled off the lessons. And I quit my job the next day. And by quitting that, I quit my career that I'd had since I was 15 years old. Because I didn't know it was coming, but I knew if I talked to these women, I'd get $1 million worth of education, and that I'd have a great experience. And I thought that I'd quit my job and write my book proposal and get an agent, and then there would be a bidding war on my book, and I'd sell it for high six figures, perhaps seven, and then my book would come out, my phone would ring in the middle of the night. Hello, Fawn. It's Oprah. I just read your book. You've got to come tomorrow. I'm sending the jet for you. And then Oprah and I would get on so well, she'd have me for dinner in the apartment that night with her and Stedman and Gail. That was the plan. Always have a plan and always know that it is the greatest piece of fiction you will ever write in your life. Never will it go that way. And in my particular case, so I quit my job and get an agent, and then my book got rejected by every major publisher in the United States. Now, for all of you who hit the wall with the things that you're doing, and I know there will be times when you do, I promise you, it's just a test to see whether you can fall down 7 times and get up 8. You are always going to be tested to see how much you want something. And when I look at that file of rejection letters that I have, I still have it in my office. I look at that file and I think, what kept me going? And it's that I knew it was my purpose. And it was like a book. I did have a bidding war on it. Then I got the first copy the day before 9/11. And then my book tour got canceled, and I had to fight through that. And I wrote 29 letters to Oprah. Something worked. And when all those obstacles were happening, I was practicing being a professional speaker, and then I got this. It's a lightning strike. It is a lightning strike that happened to me. But it would never have happened if I had quit. And let me tell you something. Every time you think you're there, you're not. You're going to have good years. You're going to have bad years. COVID wasn't so easy for those of us in the professional speaking industry as you might imagine, right? You're never there. So when you are there, and when you are succeeding, and when you have a good moment, drink it in. Drink it in. This is the happiest moment of my week. Drink it in. And so, I have certain things I want to do in this hour when I want to teach you how to really take charge and kick some ass. I call that radical effectiveness. One. I did not take this picture, but I love it because it reminds me of my old cat Willie, Evil Willie, who looked in the mirror and saw himself as the king of the jungle. When you look in the mirror, what do you see? Do you see your power, your beauty, or do you say, ooh, not looking so good today, put on a few, bad hair. See your power, because I promise you, every one of you has it inside of you. You just have to tap into it. I have really good self-esteem because of the projects I worked on, and largely because of this woman right here. Her name was Christine Hughes, and she was the founder of Nature's Sunshine Vitamins. I interviewed her after I read an article about all of her success. She had 5 houses. It was really, this woman's loaded, right? And she started this company with $150 and an idea. She had no college degree, 7 kids, and she turned that into a company that this year made $450 million. And I said, wow, what's your leadership style? She says, you know, I'm kind of a take me as I am kind of person. I get up and I walk to the closet in the morning and I just go in there and I find something that fits and I go out and do my best. And I said, wow, let's talk about your weight. And she said, can you imagine what it is like to be overweight and sell vitamins and health products? And I said, yeah, but you've got all the things that we all are trying to get for ourselves. You're rich, you're successful, people respect you, and you don't have good self-esteem? And she goes, oh no. I said, being tactful as I am, maybe you should get some therapy for that. And she said, honey, I'm 60 years old. If I am not good with this now, I'm never going to be good with it. And because she said that, every time I interviewed another person, and many of them are in that book you have, every time I interviewed them, I asked about their self-esteem. And almost universally, they all admitted to self-esteem issues. 5 people said they had good self-esteem. I think 3 of the 5 were lying. I did believe Jane Goodall, right? But I have good self-esteem because I know something. If all of these superheroes are doing this with the negative voice, then it's not real, right? It's not real. And I know you've all done it to yourselves today. Every one of you has said something negative to yourself today, and many of you have said 50 or 100 things negative. So you can live that way, or you can ask yourself, is that making you successful? And if it's not real, which I'm promising you it's not, why are you going to continue doing it? You've got some things there that will help you on your way to better affirmations. But I did this interview when I was a journalist. It was right before I started the book project, and I interviewed a professor who had spent her life researching how people perceive their flaws. I said, wow, what made you decide to do that and spend your life doing that? And she said, well, can't you tell? And I said, no. And she goes, my lisp. Don't you hear my lisp? I'm like, no. She had devoted her life to this research because of a flaw that was imperceptible. I mean, imagine maybe I would have heard it if I spent time with her a lot, but it's the things that we saddle ourselves with that are so unnecessary. I promise you, if you're too thin, if you're too heavy, if you're too tall, if you're too short, you're fine. You're fine. You're 100% fine right now as you are. So it's time to start loving yourself a little more. And then ask yourself this. Why is it you will say meaner things to yourself than you'll say to a total stranger or to somebody you can't even stand? Why are you doing that? You're not, you know what I'm talking about. And if someone talked to your kids like that, what would you do? And you're doing this, all, right, you'd heard them. You're doing it all day, every day. We got to get in charge of that. If you do not think you are worth it, you're not. So you've got to put yourself in the game and take your power. You have power. You have power. It doesn't matter if you're the only woman. It doesn't matter if you have less education, whatever. God gave you enough to make it. You have it. You have it all the way, every day, and just believe yourself. See that. And remember this. Don't let security be your dangerous anchor. This is some of the most important advice I ever got, because when I had that boss hole, I had a really good job, good benefits, 5 weeks of vacation, lived in the Rocky Mountains and had a ton of friends there. And then came that moment where he took my promotion and I'm like, I'm going to go. And then I had another job back in Florida where I could be near my family, and that was important to me. But I didn't have the same kind of package. It was going to pay well, but I got all these friends, and I live in Colorado, and then my friend said that to me. Don't let security be your dangerous anchor. And she said it 3 times. Don't let security be your dangerous anchor. Don't let security be your dangerous anchor. Because I promise you, it's your ability to see risk, fortify it so that you can make it successful, and then just take the dive that will create your success. Don't let security be your dangerous anchor. And I jumped, and here I am. Oh my God. Oh, you guys are I'm just so grateful to have had this life. And if I hadn't been taught that the magic is in the risk, I wouldn't have it. I wouldn't have it. And how many people do you know who are seeing opportunities and they're waiting till everything is lined up and perfect? And when is it perfect? It's never perfect. And I did not invent this idea that you start ugly, but you start. Just get going. You mentioned my podcast. You know, I had this idea to do a podcast. I have a great partner for it. I have so much fun doing it. We had started recording them. I'm a big cyclist. I was on a routine bike out to the beach. It's not far. Did it all the time. And some guy was on his morning walk, and he did a U-turn to come back, didn't look over his shoulder, walked right into my bike, threw me. And even though I had a helmet on, I had a head injury that was so significant that until May, seriously, I mean, we thought that I may have early onset dementia. Okay? I'm okay. Right? Right? I'm okay. But we kept waiting on the podcast because we didn't know when we could do more. I had 3 months I couldn't do anything. And then slowly things would come back, and the memory gaps were horrible. But then I thought about this idea, and I said, we need to just start. And it's like we didn't know how we were doing it, what we were doing, and you know what? It all worked out just fine. It all worked out fine. And so when you wait for everything to be perfect, just bet on yourself. Right? It's going to be fine. The other thing, okay, now, you know, I'm very athletic. I did get myself a stand-up paddleboard years ago. And when I got on it the first time, well, the first time was a rental. And I was so proud I didn't fall in, and then I bought one. And I was so proud that for a full year, I never fell in the water. I'd get up on that thing, and I might be almost, and I'm all wobbly, and I'd always save it, right? Because isn't that what we do in life? We're so scared we're going to mess up, and we're all uptight, and we're all stressed because we want to be in control. And I'm up there on that thing, and then one day, some guy on a jet ski came around, and he threw a wake at me on purpose, and I flew in the water. And I flew in the water, and I got back on my board, and there were these two guys in a boat that were laughing, and I looked at one, and I go, got a beer? And he goes, yeah. He hands me a beer, and it was one of my favorite days ever in the history of paddleboarding. Now, we know I don't like paddleboarding. I'm a kayaker, but we try to control everything. Life is an out-of-control thing. You have to always have the certainty that you're going to be fine no matter what. It's like when the AV went down before, I'm like, I got this. Got my memory back, so I know I can do this, right? So you've got it. And then you have to have the belief that one foot in front of the other and you get where you need to go. Now, that's my butt. And I'm on this course. And you have to understand, I am famous. I'm going to cover these up because everybody's going to look. I'm famous for bad feet. Okay? But I've learned. I'm not the most coordinated person. The first time I did a ropes course, I was shaky, shaky, shaky. And then I just started to think, just do it one at a time. And the other thing, I have another book called Work-Life Reset, and I wrote it after the hardest year of my life. I'd had a breakup. I bought a house that was move-in ready, right? We know what that meant. Get ready to pay. And 2 days after we closed on the house, my mom died. And then 2 months later, my dad died. Then a friend in business was not a friend, and then somebody who was one of my best friends just did a disappearing act. a painful disappearing act. So all of this stuff happened. And one of the things I learned when I hit about 40 was that things work out. You ever notice that? It all works out. Or as I say normally, and I've always tried to find a way to say this on stage, and it's really hard, but I know y'all are a little rough and tumble because I heard that. Every shitstorm ends. They end. They end. But in 2013, it didn't end. My mom died. I had to speak in Dallas the next day, and it hadn't hit me. The grief hadn't hit me, and so I was right on my game. And I did this great speech, and they invited me to come back the next year, and it was the same date. And there I am in the same hotel with the same people and depressed. And I knew I had to do something. I either needed to get medication or do something, and I decided to do something. Which for me, I know that massive amounts of fresh air, open space, time with prayer, that I can just find my way through something. So I flew home to Florida, cleared my calendar, and the next morning went to our southernmost beach in my county, which includes everything from St. Petersburg up past Clearwater, Tarpon Springs, all of this. And every day I walked between 10 and 13 miles, and I would walk to my bike to my car, go home and sleep, and it was beautiful. And by day 4, I woke up, I'm like, oh, where am I going today? And then by the time I was done, 2 weeks later, and some of them I had to either kayak out to an island or get a ride, I had finished every bit of beach in our county. And when I finished, I wanted to get a picture of me, of something I wrote in the sand to commemorate it. And I didn't want it to be trite or fake. And so I got to my knees and I just wrote the word done. Because I felt good. You know, you're not getting enough attention. I'm sorry. I felt good. I felt really good. And I thought, I wonder how long this will last. And it lasted all the way. And like I mentioned, my feet aren't the best. And so when I'm walking a long distance, they really hurt. They hurt bad. And I have learned that if I just go left, right, sometimes for miles, just take the next step, I get there. All I have to do is keep moving forward. And when you start to hit the wall, no matter what it is that's going on in your life, just take the next step. And then the next. And like I say, careers, you're never there, right? You are never going to be there. You're always going to have something. And whenever I hit the wall, I say inside of my head, just take the next step. Don't worry about failing. Failing leads you to your greatest opportunities. I swear to God. I swear it will. Weak people see obstacles and stop. Strong people expect obstacles and know they will find a way. Because there's always a way. Take the next step and then the next. And this is a very old picture, but it means a lot to me. It was in the Barcelona Olympics, and he snapped his tendon when he was running. And he just kept going. And he, he's like hobbled. And his father ran from the stands and got him over that finish line. What was the image of those Olympics? Was that picture. Everybody remembers that. Nobody remembers who won. So it's the things that you get along the way. It's your friends being supportive. It's knowing that you're not alone, that you're smart, you're agile, you can do all of this. That gives you the win. And you'll get it. I love this quote. I love this because the Dalai Lama, if you do something about a situation, why worry? And if you can't do something about a situation, why worry? Can't we worry ourselves to death, right? But do we need to do that? No, we don't. And we don't need to take life so seriously. Like life or death is going to happen if something goes wrong that you're worrying about. There doesn't happen very many times that it's that serious. The reason there's a picture of toilet paper on that screen is that I had a friend who worked for Procter & Gamble as a vice president, and it was very intense. And one day her boss said, don't forget, at the end of the day, all we do here is make toilet paper. And it gave her perspective. Now, actually, I think toilet paper is really important. But you get the point, right? One day, I got up really early. I get up for sunrise all the time. And I take my kayak out. I live pretty close to the water in Dunedin, Florida. That's actually in the Dry Tortugas. And every time I get out of bed for sunrise, I'm like, I don't want to get up. And every time I get up, I'm happy I did. And one time I was walking the beach at sunrise, and I said, dear God, thank you for letting me live this life. And I heard in my head something that said, you chose to live this life. So are you making the choices that are giving you what makes you happy? Because you don't have to live near the beach to get a good sunrise or sunset. I think it occurs wherever you live, right? There's always something you can do to add life to your life. I learned so much in my life when I was living in Colorado and I was cycling. One day, I did something known as the death ride. Oh, I should tell you guys, I've always had a lifelong issue with my weight. And as I recall, on that day, I think I weighed about, I'm not telling you the number, but it was over 2, okay? And on that day, I did something that only one other woman had done, which was to do 7 mountain passes. And a pass is many mountains, okay? Over 21,000 feet of climbing and 230 miles in one day. Now, I have learned everything I need to know about life on my bike. I learned that when you pass a man, they will kill themselves to get back in front of you. Yeah, right? Sorry, guys, but it's true, right? It's true. It's just in them. I have learned that if you worry about that thundercloud over there, you might not even get rained on. So just kind of see the storms, but don't let them paralyze you with fear. I learned there's always someone who's ready to run you off the road. But on this day, I learned so much about life, so much about what matters, and it's really about you. It's not about me doing something really dumb, but it's like, who wants to spend their day doing that? But I did it, and when I signed up for it, there were 3 men and me, and the men did not want me to do that ride because they thought I was going to slow them down or I wouldn't be able to do it, blah, 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 whatever. And they kept trying to discourage me. When a year earlier, I was the first woman to do a similar thing in Rocky Mountain National Park and on that loop. And I said to them, look, I'm going to do it. I'm going. And they just kept saying, yeah, but. So I said to my neighbor, Joe, I'm going to do this thing in the mountains. Will you come down to Durango with me? It's really going to be great. And he said, no problem. I said, just hang out in Durango, find me sometime, maybe 3 in the afternoon, and make sure I've got support. And he says, okay. So it starts at 1:30 in the morning. If you can imagine how dark it is in Colorado where there's not going to be any ambient light, and I'm climbing, and I didn't know they had these really great LED lamps for your bike. I had a cheap thing I had bought at Target, so I couldn't see anything. And I'm driving up this mountain on my bike, and those guys left me immediately. They wanted nothing to do with me. I just saw them trailing up ahead. I just kept going, and I had a secret weapon. I had this cassette tape. Okay, a cassette tape. I had this cassette tape I had made, and it had all my favorite songs. Tina Turner, Madonna, Rolling Stones, and in between every song, my family and my friends were encouraging me. They said things to keep me going. And so when we started at 1:30 in the morning, I started with that tape. And, just going along, and then about, I don't know, must have been about 6, because the sun was coming up, I get to the top of the first pass, which was the Molis Divide. And it was a 360 panorama of beautiful, magnificent mountains. And the water guy is there, and I'm feeling strong. And I know I'm going to be okay, because I've told myself I cannot feel any pain or complain until I've hit mile 120. Because at 120, I'm going to get a 40-mile gradual descent, recover, and then get on back out there. So I get to the top of that first one, and it was funny. Mustang Sally was on my cassette as I summit that mountain, never knowing that years later I would write a book called Mustang Sally's. So that was then. There's one. The next, Coalbank Pass, no problem. Dallas Divide, I'm doing great. I cycled past Ralph Lauren's ranch, and I look down, and I have no water. I have this much water, and I got a long way to go, and I have not seen the water guy in hours. And suddenly, I'm forced to figure out what I'm going to do to quit, because I'm not going to make it without water. And there aren't any convenience stores in that part of the world, right there. If I found a stream, it probably had giardia in the water, and that would really not be good. And just as I'm trying to figure it out, I hear beep, 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 beep. And I turn, and it's Joe, and he's in my car, and he comes up, and he goes, hey, and I look at him and go, hey, do you have water? And he goes, I have water, I got Gatorade, I got food, what do you need? I said, don't lose me. Because your friends and your family will get you there every time. Your friends and family will get you. It's just like that tape, right? So I'm back in the game. I'm going, and I am climbing on this side of Lizard Head Pass, because that's going to be mile 120 up at the top. And I am strong and ready for my 40-mile gradual descent. And I get up to the top of that mountain, and what do I see? No. Go ahead. The water guy. And you know what he says to me? He says, you're going too slow, so I'm going to put you in the truck and move you forward. And I looked at him and I said, no, the rule is I have 24 hours to do this, which I will do, and I'm not quitting. And he says, get in the truck, and we had a fight. And then Joe pulls up, and I look at him, I said, will you support me? And he goes, yeah. And I go, bye-bye. Because there's always someone who's going to tell you to quit. Don't listen. If you know you're going to make it, just keep moving forward. You're going to get there. So I'm back in it, and I start the other side of Lizard Head Pass. I'm going to get 40 miles of gradual descent. And what do I encounter? But the worst headwind I've ever had in my life. And instead of getting to just glide for 40 miles, I had to pedal hard. Because remember this, just when you think it's going to get easier, it's going to get harder. And all you can do is keep moving forward. 1 mile at a time, 1 inch at a time, 1 step at a time. Keep moving forward. Well, I get through that. I see at the side of the road, Joe has set up a beautiful picnic. I stop, I eat. It's the first time, it's probably 4 in the afternoon, first time I have sat down since 1:30 in the morning. And I'm down there crouched, and it comes that moment when I have to get up and get moving. And I can't move. Just can't. And he reaches forward and he pulls me up and he goes, get on your bike. And I get on my bike, and it's going to be 1 mile at a time. And do you know, every mile or every 2 miles, that man stood at the side of the road. You can do it, girl. Come on, Fawn. Because your friends and family will get you there. And he got me there. And then I had 2 more passes. And I started hallucinating. I didn't know what to do. Sun's coming down. I put my tape in. I heard the voices of people I loved. They were there for me. They got me up that mountain. I thought I saw a dinosaur, but I thought, I'm educated. I know they're extinct, right? And suddenly, I've just got one more descent, and I'm going to be there. And it's a very steep descent. And the road is bad, and I'm thinking, you probably aren't awake enough to do this, but I'm going to do it. And Joe was behind me with the flashers on, because by this point it's dark. And he's got the flashers on in the car so that other vehicles knew something was up. And every time he saw a pothole, he'd flit the brights. And he got me down that mountain, and I came around the corner, and I saw the lights of Durango. I saw the hotel parking lot where I had started. You never know how close you are to turning the corner until you turn the corner. Whether it's me selling my book or walking or doing anything, you just have to keep moving forward. And there I was, and I glided into that parking lot, and what do I see? The guys. And they're all there in their stinky bike clothes, and they said, hey, we wanted to cheer you in. And I'm looking at that, and they hadn't changed clothes, hadn't showered, and I'm like, oh, the tortoise caught up to the hares. Didn't she? And they go, you want to have dinner? I'm like, nah, I'm going to go with Joe. And then I went and ate a foot-long sub, and then I didn't get on my bike for 6 weeks. But there was a lot of learning in that. Okay, I got so much more to do. This is a great story. Hire me again and you'll hear it. Because I want to teach you things that make you stronger. Remember, the more you do things that scare you, the easier it is to do things that scare you. I have a friend whose daughter has a lot of anxiety, and she's scared to do things that she's afraid of. Like even going into the water, but I'm getting her out there, and I'm going to get her to do night kayaking with me. We have this plan. She's going to do it, because once you do the first thing, you can do the second. Keep going. Keep doing things that scare you. Now, strike a pose. Everybody stand up for 1 second. I want you to show me, when you've got to make your point, what's the position you take to feel powerful? I'm just curious. What's your power pose? Okay. That's okay. Okay, now sit down. Wait, what did I miss here? Oh my God. Come up here. Yep, come on.
Come on. No, thank you. It was all you.
She has a power pose similar, but it also involves 2 middle digits. That's a good one. I want to talk to you a little about your body language and the ways you make your cases. 1, you always want to make yourself bigger, okay? So Wonder Woman doesn't stand around like this. She stands like that. Oh, there's power there, right? There's the CEO pose. We've seen Oprah do that, and we've seen men do that. Do you do that? Yeah, these are poses that work. Okay, if you're going to close the deal, I love that show, Damages. It was on years ago, Glenn Close. But look at, is that a power pose? You can tell exactly what she wants and exactly what she's saying. And we have to understand that how we position ourselves influences how others are perceiving us. So when you look and feel powerful, others give you more power. Okay. Know your power. Know your power. And stop talking like a wimp, for God's sakes. Do you even know you're talking like a wimp? We all do it, but we have to be sure that we are not exposing insecurities or flaws, because men don't do these things, okay? How often have you heard us saying these things? Okay. Bear with me. I'm a little nervous. Or I'm not great with numbers. You know that women use wimpy language 4 times more than men do it. Yeah, they do. I think we should blah, blah, blah. I hope we blah, blah, blah. I feel like we should, okay? Every time you put that qualifier in front of what you're saying, it dilutes what you're saying. Instead of, I think we should go in this direction and make the investment, is that powerful, or is we should go in this direction and finally make that investment? Get rid of the qualifiers because they make you weak. I'm no expert, but why would you say something like that? You know I'm not the best person to say this, but correct me if I'm wrong, right? That is making us weak. So you want to use declarative sentences instead of questions. Take the time you need to talk, and don't wait to be called on if the guys aren't waiting to be called on, right? If they're just speaking up, speak up, okay? This is really important, though. You don't want to ease into something. You really want to come, if you're having meetings with anybody, know what the 3 points are that you want to say. I've always said to have 3 points because 4 is too many, 2 are too few. And that way you're not overwhelming them with too much. Now, I had a podcast we recorded Friday with a woman who's very, 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 very senior at Siemens. And I asked her, because she has to make really serious presentations, because basically she is in charge of the sector that protects the power grids around the world. So it's a big deal. I said, well, how can you limit it to 3 points? She said, if I can't make the case in one slide, I haven't done my job right. Doesn't mean that you won't have supplemental ones, but you have to know, and they have to know exactly what it is that you're saying and what you're trying to achieve. So figure out what your point is, okay? And then look about that. Men take the floor, they just yak, 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 yak. And women talk 50% less, and when they do talk, studies show they think they've talked too much. So pay attention to how much the guys are talking, use that much space. And if you're just quietly listening, it looks like you don't have anything to contribute. Okay? When you're interrupted, take back the floor. Have any of you ever had an idea stolen? Right, by the guys who are doing that? Okay. Now, when you're in a male-dominated environment, how many of you it's like you're the only woman? Okay, a few, because now things have changed so that usually there's another one. If there is another woman, she has to be your ally. You're not competing against her for the same amount of success. You're going to create more success. And you got to build that alliance so that when she suggests something, you can jump in and say, great idea. And that when that idea is stolen, you can say, I really loved it when Kate brought up, and make sure that the credit goes to where it is due. If you don't have the other woman there to back you up, you have to protect yourself. When they interrupt, say, hey, let me chime back in. I wasn't done here with my idea. So you own this. Okay. Take credit for your work. Take credit for your work. The number one mistake women make is expecting other people to recognize and reward their hard work. Well, guys, the whole time are pounding on their chest. Look at me, right? So just make sure they know what you're doing and where you're going. Okay. A little anger is okay, just don't lose it. We all remember what happened when she lost it. Didn't go over so well, right? Women have a different zone of operation. You can't operate like a man. We're not there yet. And if you doubt me on this, just look what happens. Don't care what your political beliefs are, but if you look at what happened when in a certain presidential election and there was a woman, women have less room, okay? If a man is really, aggressive, then he's just in command. And if he's really sweet, he's a teddy bear of a boss. But if a woman's really aggressive, she's a bitch. And if she's really sweet, she's too nurturing. Okay, so you have less of a zone. Anger, got to be careful, and then tears. Okay. How many of you have ever cried at work? Hands high. All right, tell the truth. Because I'm in there. Okay. And when I did it that one time, what a mistake that was. Because the dynamic between my boss and me completely changed in an instant. And then I did research on this because it makes them so uncomfortable. They can't stand it. So if you're going to cry or lose it or feel utter frustration, my advice to you is catch your breath, say, I need to use the restroom, I'll be right back. Get out of the room, get a drink of water, get your act together, and then come in. Because you don't want to fall apart. You don't have to do that. Now, as we go through life, we are on a quest to find happiness, validation, and all of those things. And one thing I've been trying to teach you this whole time is that everything you need is right there within you, isn't it? Okay? This woman is Ann Rubenstein Tisch. I interviewed her for a book. She's in your book. And she was the founder of the Harlem School for Girls, which was a concept that I really loved. And that was that you get at-risk kids when they're in kindergarten and mentor them all the way up so they could be successful. So I wanted to interview her about that, and I did. And we got on just great on the phone. She says, next time you're in New York, let's have lunch. And I said, I'd love that. So I was going to New York, and I made plans to see her. And I was talking to my agent, and she said, well, what's on your itinerary? And I said, okay, I'm going to go to Penguin to see my editor. And I had all these things on the list, and said, then I'm going to have lunch with this lady, Ann Tisch. She goes, wait a minute. You know who that is, don't you? And I'm like, yeah, she's founder of the Harlem School for Girls. She goes, Tisch, don't you know the Tisch name? Do we have New Yorkers in here? I know we do because I asked. Okay. You ever hear the name Tisch? What's it mean? They what? NYU. They used to own the football team, all the Lowe's hotels, tons and tons of real estate. She says, you need a new wardrobe. Well, so my friends marched me off to Neiman Marcus, and I, of course, find something on sale, and it's too tight. But I'm not spending for something that's not on sale. So I get my Neiman Marcus outfit. I'm in New York, and this wasn't too long after my starving author days, so I'm staying at the Howard Johnson's in Times Square. And I'm getting up that morning to get ready for my lunch with one of the richest women anywhere, and I see that too tight, beautiful skirt outfit, and then I see the suit I've worn 100 times that I got from Dillard's. Neiman Marcus, Dillard's. Neiman Marcus, Dillard's. And I put my Dillard's suit on, and I grabbed the fake Fendi purse I had bought the day before on Canal Street. And I went out in the world to do my best and see this woman at her restaurant on Park Avenue. And it's one of those places with chandeliers and stuff. And I'm sitting there, and everybody's coming by her table. Oh, Ann, so good to see you. Mrs. Tisch, here's the waitstaff. Mrs. Tisch, can I warm your coffee? Mrs. Tisch, would you like hot chocolate chip cookies fresh from the oven? Oh, Ann. And it happened 10 times, so I finally said, does that ever get old? And she says, oh my God, do you know when I throw a party, half the time I go in the bathroom and I call my girlfriends on my cell phone? She says, so you're a professional speaker, you probably have to travel a lot. And I said, I do. I do. I said, but there's nothing I miss more than dinner out on Friday nights with my girlfriends, followed by a nice trip with them to Super Walmart. And she looks at me and doesn't say anything, and I'm thinking, ooh. I just told her I'm a Walmart shopper. She's really rich. And then all of a sudden she says, I just love Target. And I said, really? She goes, yeah. Yeah, 2 weeks ago I went to Super Target. I spent $400, and the woman said, Mrs. Tish, would you like to save 10% on your order? And I said, why, yes, I would. Well, anyhow, we stayed in touch. And I told her, I said, I have told people all over the world that you shop at Target. She says, well, Fawn, I go to Kmart too. The point is, if I had worn the wrong suit, and if I had tried to be who I was supposed to be, it wouldn't have connected to anything. And we forget, we're enough. It's all right inside of us. We can just say who we are and be who we are. You're the only one of you that exists. So love yourself enough to let that person go and be free, be authentic. You have so much power in you that you don't use. You really don't. I mean, think about this. Dorothy, wait, we know what that is. What is that? Right. She goes through all of that insanity. She, and then, get the Tin Man and the Scarecrow and the Cowardly Lion, and they go on their adventure, and they finally get to Oz, and then realize that the big Oz is really this nincompoop behind a curtain. And, he gives them a bunch of BS awards, and then he tells Dorothy, well, I can take you in my hot air balloon to get you back to Kansas, right? But that doesn't go so well, right? He flies away in the balloon, and she's stuck. All hope is lost until we suddenly see this big bubble coming toward us, right? And inside that bubble is Glinda, the good witch. And she says, all you have to do is click your heels together 3 times and say, there's no place like home. There's no place like home. No place like home. And Scarecrow's like, are you kidding me? Why didn't you tell her that in the first place? And she says she had to learn it for herself. Well, you can feel free to spend your life trying to learn it for yourself. I know we got some people who are really young in here too. You can spend years and decades trying to learn it. Or you can just listen to me. You've already got the power inside of you. It's always been there. It will always be there. You don't have to wait for someone to make you feel good about yourself. You are enough. And good Lord, what is it with us that we will spend years avoiding an uncomfortable conversation, staying in bad relationships, putting up with things that are borderline or outright abusive, bad jobs, because we're not willing to have an uncomfortable conversation. And an uncomfortable conversation takes between 3 and 15 minutes. And you know what? When you just do it, it gets easier. It's like those things that scare you. It gets easier. And I love to talk about Granny. I'm just going to keep talking. So give me a 10-minute sign when I have to shut up. I'm on a roll. Okay. All right. So Granny. I live in Florida. One place I love is Weeki Wachee. It's where the mermaids still perform. It's a kitschy Florida tourist attraction. It is on a river that is pristine and clear to the bottom and magnificent. You know I'm a big kayaker, right? And I made friends with mermaid Vicki Smith, who you could YouTube. She's a hero because she's the oldest living performing mermaid. She's 82 now. Right? And through a long story, I started calling her Granny when she was in her 60s. But she has this beautiful house right on the river. And she was raised in the tradition of Southern hospitality. Oh, see you people over here. I don't want you to feel left out. Southern hospitality, right? Which means you wait on people hand and foot. Do we have Georgia people in this room? Am I right? So she would be waiting on people hand and foot. She has this beautiful home on this beautiful river, and everybody would come, and she'd be so nice, we thought she wanted us to bring our friends. And so we just kept bringing people and bringing people. And then one day she says to me, Kathy's coming, and she's bringing her mother for 10 days again. She goes, I can't stand it. Her mom just sits there on the back deck, doesn't lift a finger, not one finger, just sits there and smokes cigarettes. I said, well, Granny, just tell her that you don't want her to bring her mother. I can't do that. Oh, yes, you can. I can't do that. I said, Granny, it is an uncomfortable conversation. Just blurt it out. Uncomfortable conversations take 3 to 15 minutes. I can't do that. I said, well, suit yourself, right? Suit yourself. Can't do that. A week passes. Oh my God, I am dreading that visit. She's bringing her mother and she sits on the back deck smoking cigarettes on her butt, doesn't lift a finger. I'm like, Grandma, an uncomfortable conversation takes 3 to 15 minutes. Just say, don't bring your mother. I can't do that. She goes, I said, yes, you can. No, I can't. Yes, you can. It only takes 3 to 15 minutes. I can't. I said, suit yourself, because you know what's going to happen if you don't. She goes, what? I said, she's just going to bring her again next year, too. Dead silence. The next morning, my phone rings at 7 a.m., right? And I look and I see it's Granny. So I said, hey, what's going on? She says, well, I did it. I said, oh, I knocked your purse down. I said, what did you do? She goes, I had an uncomfortable conversation. I said, yeah? I said, and what'd you say? I said, Kat, you are welcome here whenever you want to come. But just you. Only you. I said, really? And I said, what'd she say? Nothing. I said, and see, it just took 3 to 15 minutes. Granny goes, 15 seconds. Remember that. Just say what you need to say. It gets easier. This is my core coping strategy. I learned this through a really important part of my life. My mother had a stroke when she was 66, and this is not a sad story, so I don't want you to get sad on it, even though it sounds sad. So here's my mom and dad. She had a stroke when she was 66 and fought her way back so that she could walk again, broke her hip, fought her way back, broke the weaker hip, was always in a wheelchair after that, and then got Alzheimer's. So she was sick for 20 years. And if you look at that as a sad story, you miss the point. Because, yeah, she wouldn't have chosen that. But she made up her mind that no matter what happened, she was going to find joy every day. Honest to God, I never once heard her complain about anything. Ever. And then when it became clear that something was going on with the Alzheimer's, she would repeat the same story. First it was a couple times, then it was endlessly. And I knew that the day would come when I wouldn't even hear her voice. So I was just going to love the fact that she was talking and animated and had something to share. And that every time there was a change, then she couldn't talk much, but she could still say, I love you. It's like I treasured that. And then when she couldn't, but I could still see her. And then toward the end, when there wasn't much going on, and she didn't know me, but I knew her, and she knew I was important, but I would walk in that room, and there was just this big whoosh of love that would hit me. And I got through 20 years of that with this, which is, and use this whether it's something like that or something at work. Whenever things get tough, realize that the faster you accept, cope, and adapt, the faster you're on your road to being happy, no matter what. So if I could accept, instead of thinking, why doesn't she remember this, or we've got to fix this, you just have to accept, cope, adapt. And let me tell you, when COVID hit, and all my business just collapsed in a week, as you know, because the convention industry, right? No conventions. I just thought 3 things: accept, cope, adapt. Get in your kayak. I had a lot of fun. And I'm counting on you all to get me more speaking, right? Because we know I love this. But remember, how well you survive anything comes down to your ability to rock and roll with it. Now, this is me on my, dare I say, because women shouldn't say it, but I like you guys, my 60th birthday. And I had all kinds of wonderful activities planned. We were all going to start at sunrise with a sunrise paddle, and we had all these things planned. And then a hurricane came through. But not so much that it was going to blow my house down, but you can see it was kind of significant. And I was there outside of the boat club, and then, I hope this shows, yeah. And you see, that's one of the happiest moments of my life. I felt so alive and so grateful, healthy. I'm strong. I'm stronger than I've ever been in my life, right? And I am a badass. You guys don't know that, but I mean, honestly, in the last week, I've gone nighttime kayaking 3 times for the bioluminescence. There I am. I'm saying my gratitude, right? And then that's my day. Now compare this to someone who's on my Facebook feed, who I used to work with, who apparently shares the same day and had a post, thanks for saying nice things on my birthday. It sucked because of the weather, but you all helped a little. Now, you can choose to be happy or choose to not be happy. It's on you. And I know there are people who have serious, serious tragedy and obstacles, and I don't minimize it. Some things are so out of control, you can wish yourself happy and it isn't going to happen. But for 95% of us, no, probably 99% of us, if we make the choice, we get that. That's happy Fawn, right? And just remember that when it gets rough, you're on your way to something. I mean, think about it. If I hadn't had that jerk boss and the divorce, and if I hadn't gone to Florida and had trouble as a manager and then gotten the book and then couldn't find a book and then start a project and I can't sell it and then start practicing speech, if I hadn't gone through every single obstacle, I wouldn't be here. And this is my moment with you guys. I'm so happy right now. And if I hadn't had faith that if I just took the next step, kept moving forward, I wouldn't have known this joy is my choice. And yeah, I have moments when things are tough, like everybody. But I always figure this is what it comes down to. Okay, now there's that beautiful image from the Webb telescope that we now have. Right. So you look at that, 321.4 million Americans, 7.5 billion people on Earth, more than 100 billion planets in the Milky Way, more than 700 million trillion planets in the universe. I kind of think there's probably more going on here than just us, right? And when I see that image of Earth, I sometimes think about that when I'm falling asleep if I'm feeling a little bit stressed. And I think, okay, 700 million trillion planets in the universe, 100 billion planets in the Milky Way, 7.5 billion people on Earth, 321.4 million Americans. Do I have the worst problems out there for God to be worrying about? No. Do I have the worst problems in the United States? No. How about the worst problems in the state of Florida? No. Do I have the worst problems in Dunedin? No. How about, do I have the worst problems on my street? No. Do I have the worst problems on my block? No. And when you remember that, you realize something. You're rich, you're whole, you're safe, and you can be happy. Just believe in yourself. You have everything you need inside of you. Just remember, take the next step and the next step. Fall down 7 times, get up 8. You all are a great audience. Thank you so much. And she said, how old is old? And I'm working on something with that. And old is when you think you are. I mean, I literally remember being 28 years old and thinking I felt old. And I told somebody this, and she just laughed in my face. And I remember when I turned 40, and I said that to my realtor who was 79, and she laughed in my face. And I told you I kind of hit a milestone birthday there, and you know what? I'll hold myself up to anybody. I got more energy. I have more fun. I will do more crazy things because you know what? I'm not old. I am 28 years old in a body that's getting a little older. But I'm not old. So that's the answer to that one. Just live, live, live. Live. I do something every single day to make the day different. Every day I say, what am I going to do for myself today? And if you can't at least go see the sunset or just take 10 deep breaths outside, start that. Every day can have adventure in it. We have that power. Okay. Totally. They have done study after study on that idea that a man can see something and say, well, I meet one of these 50 qualifications. That ought to be enough. And a woman, if she doesn't hit every one of them, won't even apply. And, you know, and men figure they'll figure it out. And what you do, if they ask you, like, do you know how to blah, blah, blah? And you don't have to say, I can learn. You can say, yes, I'm familiar with it. I asked a guy what he says, like when he's in tech. And they say, do you know something like that? He goes, oh, yeah, I'm familiar with that. He'd heard of it. Yes.
I just wanted to first say thank you. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you for saying that.
You were awesome, just so inspirational. I
Oh,
love listening to your
you.
whole story, and
you.
I have no doubt you have a whole bunch of energy, and I'm feeling inspired just from being here. And
Yay.
listening to you. But I want to ask you, what's next? Because you've done a lot of things. So what else do you have on your horizon?
You mean professionally or personally?
Both.
Oh, I don't know. I have a friend who just finished canoeing the Yukon River in Alaska. And I wish she had asked me because she's willing to carry a gun and I'm not. But that sounds pretty good. And then, you know, professionally, it depends on you guys. I want speaking. This is my love. And so if I could, I would be doing this all the way to the end. It's my passion.
Well, you're really good at it.
Okay, how to be collaborative and work together. LinkedIn is great. I hate it. My podcast partner is a professional LinkedIn person, and it's just not my jam. I'll tell you what's my jam, and it's worked great. Pick a few people and start doing a monthly Zoom call. Just say, let's do our own networking thing. And then the next time, have everybody bring one more person, or figure out how you're going to do it so it's not unwieldy, because it's really easy to network with Zoom. And when the lockdown happened, I mean, I've met a lot of really influential people over time, and I knew during the lockdown that nobody was doing anything. So instead of saying, what's your availability? Because they'd all say, well, I can do that. I just said, I'm doing a Zoom meeting Tuesday at 6. If you can come, show up. Every one of them showed up, and we've been doing it ever since. I called it the cool table. Yeah. So that's my thing, is just take the initiative. And in terms of networking, don't network professionally. Make friends, and then they will help you. And always feel like you can ask a stranger for anything. If you're not comfortable in this room asking anybody to come on your Zoom call or whatever, I give you permission to ask strangers that. Everybody come up with a group of 6. Why don't you, before you leave this conference, so that you've got some power around you? Let's make future generations even more badass. I mean, honestly, my mom used to be so much more controlled and reserved, and then she had that stroke, and then I was thinking about quitting my job to write a book, which the old mom would have been like, are you crazy? And my mom just looked at me and she goes, it's going to be a bestseller. And then it was getting rejected again and again. She goes, I just know it's going to be a bestseller. And there's a picture in my house of my friend Connie and my dad and my mom. And they're sitting there in a book signing, and they're all giving me a thumbs up. And when your mom's doing that for you, you can do anything. You have to understand, we can't change it in a minute, right? But the way it will change, I promise, is with this room. So use this room, use this network, and then come up with ways that you think you can gain ground. And learn. I mean, if you want to be the owners, figure out the financing. Learn the things that will help you grow your influence. And it'll happen, it just won't happen today. Well, they have a lot of SBA loans, and they have loans for women in business. But again, it's taking the risk and saying, I'm willing to do that. I'm willing to take that, and learning it. When I was younger, I said to this well-known women's advocate who was also a judge, I said, men make all the rules, and they get paid more, and at least we get to be women. And if I had to choose between having the money and having the power or being a woman, I would choose being a woman. And she looked at me and said, I want it all. And she was right. And the only way we get it all is by coming together and saying we deserve it, let's find a way. And you've got your allies in this room. You can do that.